She was crying after being rejected on a blind date until the single dad walked in as her real date. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Maya Santos sat at table 14 in Harvest in Rye on December 20th at 7:15 in the evening, staring at the menu like it was written in a foreign language. And she was about 5 seconds away from faking a family emergency and sprinting out of this restaurant before anyone noticed she absolutely did not belong here. The place smelled like old money and fancy candles, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, and couples who probably didn't check their bank account before ordering appetizers. And Maya was wearing a $12 dress from the Goodwill on Merriman Avenue that she'd convinced herself looked expensive in her bathroom mirror, but definitely did not look expensive under these lights next to women in actual designer everything. Her phone sat face up on the table, mocking her with zero new messages from Bennett Harper, the guy she was supposed to be meeting, the guy her little brother Carlos had literally begged her to give a chance after setting up her dating profile without permission, because apparently working 70 hours a week and surviving on 4 hours of sleep wasn't a good enough excuse to avoid romance. Maya checked the time again, 7:18. He was only 3 minutes late, but her brain was already writing the story. He saw her profile pictures and realized she's not worth it. He's gonna text any second with some excuse about his car breaking down or food poisoning or literally anything that means I don't want to meet you after all. Here's the thing about working two waitressing jobs and spending every spare dollar paying off your dead mom's medical bills. You forget how to be the person sitting at the table instead of the person serving it. And Maya kept making eye contact with Sarah, her co-worker from the breakfast shift at Sunnyside Diner, who was working tables tonight, and giving her encouraging thumbs up from across the room. Maya's checking account had exactly $198 in it until Friday's paycheck hit. She'd skipped lunch to afford the Uber here because her car was being held together by duct tape and prayers, and this man she'd never met was probably expecting someone who had their life together instead of someone who cried in a Walgreens parking lot last week because toilet paper was on sale and she could finally afford the good kind. 7:26 and the door opened. Maya's whole body went rigid, watched a tall guy in a button-down walk in scanning the restaurant, and her heart was hammering so hard she thought she might pass out right there into her water glass. The guy spotted her, walked straight over with this confident smile and said, "Maya Santos?" And Maya stood up way too fast, nearly knocking over her chair. "Yes, hi. Oh my God, yes, you must be Bennett." Her voice came out about 7 octaves higher than normal, and the guy laughed. "Yeah, sorry, I'm running a bit behind. Traffic was insane coming from downtown." He sat down across from her, and Maya was thinking, okay, this is fine. He's here, he's real. He's actually kind of cute in that I definitely own a yacht, way that made her immediately self-conscious about her chipped nail polish. They made small talk for maybe 3 minutes. Maya mentioned her brother Carlos being in community college and working at the movie theater, mentioned pulling double shifts on weekends, and the guy kept checking his phone like he was waiting for something more interesting to happen. "So you work 2 jobs, that's intense. Do you ever like sleep?" He said it like a joke, but his eyes were still on his phone, and Maya felt something sink in her stomach. His phone buzzed loud enough that Maya heard it, watched his face change from polite smile to confused frown as he looked at his screen, then looked at her, then looked at his screen again like he was solving a math problem. "Wait, I'm sorry, you said your last name is Santos, right?" And Maya nodded, confused. "Yeah, Maya Santos. We matched on the app like 4 days ago." The guy's face went from confused to mortified in about 2 seconds flat. "Oh man, oh no, I'm supposed to meet Maya Chen. My buddy set me up. I saw you sitting alone and just assumed." He stood up so fast his chair scraped loud against the wood floor, and every single person at the tables around them turned to look. "This is super awkward. I gotta go find my actual date. Sorry for the confusion." And he was already walking away before Maya's brain caught up to what just happened. And she sat there frozen, watching this man cross the restaurant and sit down at a table with a different woman in a red dress who waved at him, smiling. Maya's face was on fire. Her hands were shaking. She could feel Sarah staring from the server station, and at least 6 other people had definitely just watched her get rejected by someone who wasn't even her date to begin with. She grabbed her purse with hands that wouldn't stop trembling and pulled out a $20 bill, even though all she'd ordered was water, left it on the table because the idea of waiting for change while everyone watched her was more than she could handle. The tears started before she could stop them, hot and humiliating, running down her face while she tried to wipe them away without smudging the mascara she'd spent 15 minutes applying in her bathroom. Sarah appeared at her elbow with a stack of napkins. "Maya, honey, what the hell just happened? Are you okay?" And Maya shook her head because no, she was absolutely not okay. "Wrong person. He thought I was someone else. I need to leave right now before I die of embarrassment in the middle of this stupid restaurant." She was standing up gathering her coat when the front door opened again and a different man walked in. This one wearing khakis and a sweater that had seen better days, holding his phone and looking around nervous like he'd rather be anywhere else on planet Earth. The host approached him. Maya heard her say, "Mr. Harper, your date's at table 14? And Maya's entire body went cold because that was her table, which meant this guy was Bennett, her actual date, which meant he was about to walk over and see her crying with mascara probably streaming down her face looking like she'd just survived a natural disaster. Bennett looked toward table 14, made direct eye contact with Maya, and his expression shifted from nervous to concerned in half a second. He walked over slowly like he was approaching a scared animal. "Maya, I'm Bennett. I'm so sorry I'm late. Are you okay? What happened?" Maya wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. "You're Bennett. Oh God, this is the worst first impression in human history. Some other guy thought I was his date and then realized I wasn't, and left, and everyone saw. And I was about to leave. And I'm so sorry, you should probably just go. I'm clearly cursed." The words tumbled out in one breath, and Bennett sat down in the chair across from her, without even hesitating, his eyes kind and worried in a way that made Maya want to cry harder. "Hey, breathe. It's okay. That guy's an idiot. Also, I fully almost didn't come tonight, so you're not the only one having a disaster of an evening." Maya laughed through tears which came out as this weird hiccup sound. "What do you mean you almost didn't come?" Bennett ran his hand through his hair looking embarrassed. "My 8-year-old daughter and my sister basically ambushed me into this. I've been sitting in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes having a full panic attack because I haven't been on a date in 4 years and I have no idea what I'm doing." Something in Maya's chest loosened just slightly. "Your daughter set you up?" And Bennett smiled for real this time. "Her and my sister Vanessa, Ruby made me pinky promise I'd actually come inside. And you don't break pinky promises with third graders. It's basically legally binding." They started talking and it just flowed, easier than Maya expected. Bennett asked what happened with the other guy, and she explained the whole mortifying mix-up, and he listened like he actually cared instead of like he was waiting for his turn to talk. Maya found herself mentioning stuff she didn't usually tell people. Working doubles at Sunnyside Diner and picking up nights here at Harvest and Rye, her mom passing 2 years ago, still paying off the medical bills, putting Carlos through school, and Bennett's face did this thing where he really saw her instead of looking through her. "That's a lot to carry," he said quietly. "You're basically holding your whole family together while working yourself to death. Do you ever get to just exist for yourself?" Maya felt her throat get tight. "Not really, but that's just how it is right now. Another year and the debt's gone. Then maybe I can breathe." Bennett leaned forward. "For what it's worth, that guy who walked away is an idiot, because you're pretty incredible, and he missed out." Maya felt her face heat up. "You don't even know me." And Bennett smiled. "I know you showed up to this date even though you're exhausted. I know you take care of your brother. I know you're sitting here talking to me even after the most embarrassing moment of your life instead of running away. That tells me plenty." An hour disappeared without either of them noticing. Sarah came by twice trying to take their order, and they kept waving her off because they were too busy talking. And finally Bennett looked at his watch and laughed. "We've been here over an hour and haven't eaten anything. Want to get out of here and grab actual food somewhere less fancy? I know this amazing taco truck on Lexington, best al pastor in Asheville." Maya felt herself smile real and genuine for the first time all night. "I know that truck. I pick up shifts there Thursday nights when they're slammed." Bennett's face lit up like she just told him he won the lottery. "Of course you do. Why am I not surprised? So you're saying you're a taco expert, and I was about to embarrass myself ordering wrong?" They stood up together and Bennett left $40 on the table, even though they had only had water, winked at Sarah on the way out, and held the door open for Maya like she was someone worth holding doors for. Outside, the December cold hit them sharp and bright, Christmas lights reflecting off the sidewalk, and Maya pulled her coat tighter while Bennett walked beside her toward the parking lot. "Can I tell you something?" he said, and his voice was softer now. "That guy rejecting you might be the best thing that happened to me all year, because if he hadn't, I would have walked in, and you would have thought I stood you up, and we might have never actually met." Maya stopped walking and looked at him. Really looked. "So you're saying public humiliation is romantic?" Bennett laughed. "I'm saying sometimes the worst moments turn into the best ones if you stick around long enough to find out what's next. Now come on, I'm starving, and you're going to teach me the correct way to order tacos." They ended up at the taco truck on Lexington, sitting at the rickety picnic tables that had initials carved into them from every high school kid in Asheville. December, cold biting at their faces, while they split an order of al pastor and carnitas and extra chips with the verde salsa that Maya swore was life-changing. Bennett ate like he hadn't had a real meal in days, and Maya found herself relaxing for the first time in forever, laughing when he got salsa on his sweater and didn't even care. Just wiped it off and kept talking about his students and how teaching high school English was basically crowd control with occasional Shakespeare thrown in to keep things interesting. "So your mom," Bennett said carefully between bites, "you mentioned the medical bills. I'm sorry, that's a lot to deal with on your own." Maya wiped her hands on a napkin and felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came whenever someone asked about her mom. She passed away 2 years ago after being sick for a while. The bills came after, and they just kept coming. "But I'm almost done. Maybe another year and I'm free." She said it like it was no big deal, but her voice cracked on the word free, and Bennett reached across the table and just took her hand without asking, his palm warm against her freezing fingers. "I get it," he said quietly, and something in his tone made Maya look up and really see his face, the sadness sitting right there behind his eyes. Ruby's mom, Stella, she passed away 4 years ago, December 21st. It was sudden. One of those things where you're fine one day and gone the next, and I still don't really know how to talk about it. Maya squeezed his hand and felt tears burning in her eyes, because she knew that specific kind of grief, the kind that lives in your bones and changes the shape of every single day after. Ruby was only 4. She barely remembers her, and I'm terrified all the time that I'm screwing this up, that I'm not keeping Stella's memory alive the right way while also trying to be present for Ruby. They sat there in the cold, holding hands across a picnic table outside a taco truck, and Maya thought, "This is the realest conversation I've had in 2 years. This stranger gets it in a way nobody else has." "You're doing better than you think," Maya said and meant it. "Ruby asked you to go on this date. That means she wants you to be happy. Kids know things. They're smarter than we give them credit for." Bennett smiled, but it was sad around the edges. "She's been leaving notes around the house, stuff like 'I wish Dad would smile more,' and 'I think Mom would want him to have a friend.' My sister found one, and that's when they went full matchmaker mode and made the dating profile." 3 days later, Bennett invited Maya to Ruby's school Christmas concert, and Maya spent 2 hours trying on every piece of clothing she owned before settling on jeans and a sweater because she was meeting a third grader, not the Queen of England, but her hands were shaking the whole drive to the elementary school because meeting someone's kid felt bigger than any date ever could. The cafeteria was packed with parents holding phones up, recording everything, and Bennett waved her over to seats he'd saved in the third row, his whole face lighting up when he saw her walk in. Ruby played violin in the school orchestra, and she was tiny up there on stage, dark hair and braids, glasses sliding down her nose, concentrating so hard on the music that her tongue stuck out slightly. After the concert, kids flooded back to find their parents, and Ruby came running up still holding her violin, stopped short when she saw Maya sitting next to her dad. "You came," Ruby said, and her voice was quiet, kind of shy. "Dad said maybe you'd come, but I didn't know if you really would." Maya knelt down so they were eye level. "I wouldn't miss it. You were amazing up there. How long have you been playing violin?" Ruby's whole face transformed. 2 years. My mom played when she was little, and Dad found her old one in the attic." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a worn paperback. pages yellowed and corners bent. This was my mom's favorite book, A Little Princess. Dad reads it to me sometimes, but he does all the voices wrong. Maya felt her heart crack open because she was holding the exact same edition she'd read 100 times as a kid. This was my favorite too when I was your age. I basically lived in this book. Ruby's eyes went huge. Really? Will you read some with me? Dad's voice for Miss Minchin sounds like a pirate. They ended up on a bench in the hallway while Bennett watched from a distance, trying not to cry. And Maya read 2 chapters out loud while Ruby leaned against her shoulder, following along with her finger on the pages. When they finished, Ruby looked up at Maya with this serious expression. Do you like my dad? Because he smiles a lot when he talks about you, and he doesn't smile that much usually. Maya felt her throat close up. I like him a lot, and I really like you too. Ruby nodded, like that settled something important. Good, because I asked Santa for someone nice, and you seem really nice. Christmas Eve hit and Maya was scheduled for a double. 6 in the morning at Sunnyside Diner until 2 in the afternoon, then 4 until close at Harvest and Rye, and she was half asleep refilling coffee at the diner when the bell above the door chimed and Bennett walked in with Ruby trailing behind him. They slid into a booth in Maya's section, and Ruby was holding a piece of paper folded up small, pushed it across the table when Maya came over with menus. I made you something, Ruby said, and Maya unfolded it to find a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands labeled Dad, Ruby, and Maya in crayon with hearts everywhere. Maya had to turn away and pretend as she was grabbing napkins because she was absolutely going to cry in the middle of the breakfast rush. Bennett ordered pancakes and Ruby got chocolate chip waffles, and when Maya brought the check Bennett had written on the back of his receipt, Ruby wants to know if you'll come over tomorrow for Christmas breakfast, no pressure, but also I really, really want you to say yes. Maya's heart was pounding because she wanted to say yes more than anything, but she scribbled back, I work until 11 tonight, then 6 in the morning, until 2 tomorrow. I'm so sorry. She watched Bennett's face fall when he read it and felt like the worst person alive. Christmas morning. Maya's shift dragged. Every minute felt like an hour. Families coming in for holiday breakfast while she smiled and served and thought about Bennett and Ruby opening presents without her. Her shift ended at 2:15, and she walked out to the parking lot exhausted and sad, and froze when she saw Bennett's car parked next to hers, with him and Ruby sitting on the hood. We brought you Christmas breakfast for lunch, Ruby announced, holding up a thermos. Dad made hot chocolate, and we have cinnamon rolls, and we've been waiting since 1:30 because you said 2 o'clock. Maya started crying right there in the Sunnyside Diner parking lot and couldn't stop. Nobody's ever waited for me before. I always work holidays. I always miss everything. Bennett slid off the hood and pulled her into a hug. Well, that ends today. We couldn't let you spend Christmas alone. They had a picnic sitting on the curb in the parking lot, Ruby chattering about the art supplies Santa brought her, and Bennett looked at Maya with eyes that saw straight through every wall she'd ever built. I know this is fast and probably crazy, but I haven't felt this alive in 4 years. You make me remember what hope feels like. 4 days after Christmas, Bennett's in-laws drove up from Florida unannounced and showed up at his house right when Maya was there, helping Ruby build a Lego set on the living room floor. Diane and Paul were polite in that southern way that's actually kind of cold, smiling while their eyes stayed hard, and Ruby excitedly introduced Maya like she was showing off a prize. This is Maya, she reads A Little Princess with me, and she knew it was Mommy's favorite book too. Maya watched Diane's entire body go stiff, her smile freezing in place. How lovely, that was Stella's special book with Ruby. Later, Maya was in the kitchen getting ruby juice when she heard voices from the hallway. Diane talking to Bennett in that urgent whisper parents use when they're trying not to yell. It's too soon. Ruby's getting attached to this girl. What if it doesn't work out? You can't replace Stella with the first woman who pays attention to you just because you're lonely. Maya's stomach dropped straight through the floor, and she very carefully set down the juice box and walked back into the living room. Told Ruby she had to leave for work even though she didn't have a shift. And Bennett followed her outside. Don't listen to them. They're just protective. They don't mean it, Bennett said, but Maya was already unlocking her car with shaking hands. They're right, though. I'm a waitress with $47,000 in debt. You're a teacher with this beautiful kid who needs stability. not her dad's broke girlfriend confusing everything. Bennett grabbed her hand. Maya, don't do this. You're not confusing anything. Ruby's happier than she's been in years. Maya pulled away and her voice came out broken. I can't be the reason Ruby loses her grandparents. I can't be the person who causes problems in your family. This is too complicated and I'm too much work. She stopped answering his calls after that, picked up extra shifts to avoid thinking, told herself it was better this way, even though she cried herself to sleep 3 nights in a row. New Year's Eve, she was working the dinner rush at Harvest and Rye when she looked up from pouring wine and saw Bennett walking toward her table, and her heart just stopped. I need to tell you something Stella wrote, he said, and Maya shook her head. Bennett, please don't do this here. He pulled a letter from his pocket, envelope worn and creased like it had been opened and refolded 100 times. Ruby opened her, "When Daddy starts dating again" letter tonight. She asked me to come find you and read it out loud. Please, Maya, just listen. Bennett stood there in the middle of Harvest and Rye on New Year's Eve, holding that letter like it was made of glass. And Maya's shift manager gave her a nod that meant, take your break, so she followed Bennett to the same corner table where this whole thing started 2 weeks ago. Her hands were shaking when she sat down, because she knew whatever was in that letter was going to wreck her completely. And Bennett's eyes were already wet before he even started reading. Dear Ruby, Bennett's voice cracked on the first 2 words. If you're reading this, it means Daddy found someone special. And sweetheart, I'm so happy. I need you to know that loving someone new doesn't erase me. Your heart is big enough for both of us. Maya put her hand over her mouth, trying not to sob out loud while other diners pretended not to watch. And Bennett kept going. Make sure she knows she's not replacing me. She's adding to our family. We're just getting bigger. And tell Daddy I said stop being scared and stop feeling guilty. I wanted forever with you, but since I can't have it, I want you to have it with someone else. Love doesn't run out, baby girl. It multiplies. Love, Mommy. Maya was full on ugly crying and didn't even care. Tears and snot and mascara everywhere. And Bennett folded the letter carefully and reached across the table. Ruby asked me to find you tonight. Said you needed to hear that. And Maya, I need you to know you're not too much. You're not a complication. You're the person who reminded me what living actually feels like, instead of just surviving. Maya wiped her face with a napkin that immediately disintegrated. What about your in-laws? What about Diane and Paul? Bennett's jaw set firm. I talked to them, told them Stella would want me happy, and Ruby deserves to see love, not just grief. They want to apologize to you. They want to try if you're willing to try. New Year's Day. Maya showed up at Bennett's house terrified, and Diane opened the door with red eyes like she'd been crying. They sat in the living room while Ruby built Legos on the floor, pretending not to listen, and Diane twisted her hands together. We were wrong. We were protecting Ruby, but we weren't seeing clearly. Stella would have loved you. She would have wanted Bennett to find someone who makes him smile like you do. Paul nodded. You make our son-in-law happy. That's all Stella ever wanted for him. We're sorry for making you feel like you weren't enough. Ruby abandoned her Legos and climbed into Maya's lap. Does this mean you're staying? And Maya kissed the top of her head. Yeah, baby, I'm staying. 5 months later, Maya paid off the last of her mom's medical bills and quit her second job. And Bennett helped her apply to online college programs because she'd mentioned once wanting to be a teacher, and he'd apparently filed that information away for later. Ruby started calling her Maya but drew pictures for the fridge, labeling her as my bonus mom with hearts everywhere. And one Saturday they all drove out to the cemetery where Stella was buried. Maya brought sunflowers because Bennett said they were Stella's favorites, and she stood there looking at the headstone, feeling weird and grateful all at once. I talk to her sometimes, thank her for you and Ruby. Is that completely insane? Bennett wrapped his arm around her shoulders. No, it's perfect. She'd really like you. 7 months after that first date, Bennett told Maya to meet him at Harvest and Rye for dinner. And she showed up confused because they usually avoided fancy places in favor of taco trucks and diners. The host walked her to table 14, the exact same table where she'd sat crying, and Maya's heart started pounding because she knew that look on Bennett's face. A year ago, you were sitting right here crying after some idiot rejected you, Bennett said, and he was already getting out of his chair. And I walked in thinking I was about to suffer through the worst blind date in history, Instead, I found you. He dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the restaurant and pulled out a ring. Maya Santos, you showed Ruby that family grows and changes. You showed me that loving again isn't betraying the past. Will you marry us? Before Maya could even answer, Ruby popped up from behind Bennett, where she'd been hiding with Vanessa. Please say yes. I helped pick the ring, and if you say no, I'm going to be so embarrassed. Maya laughed and cried at the same time. Yes, oh my God. Yes, of course, yes. How could I say anything else? The entire restaurant erupted in applause, and Sarah, her co-worker, came running over with champagne. I knew it. I knew from that first night you two were going to end up together. 4 months later, they got married in a small ceremony in the fall because they both agreed Christmas belonged to Stella's memory. And Carlos walked Maya down the aisle while Ruby served as flower girl carrying a basket with Stella's photo tucked inside with the petals. Bennett's vows destroyed everyone. You taught me that hearts don't replace, they expand. Stella gave me Ruby and you gave me hope. Together you gave me a future I didn't think I deserved. Maya's hands were shaking holding the microphone. I thought getting rejected that night was the worst moment of my life. Turns out it was actually the beginning of the best one. You taught me I'm not too much, I'm exactly enough. Ruby insisted on giving a speech, even though she was only 9, stood up on a chair so everyone could see her. My mommy wanted my daddy to smile again, and Maya makes him smile every single day. I think they're friends now, my 2 moms, and I'm really lucky I get to keep both of them. There wasn't a dry eye in the entire venue, and at the reception, Maya found herself standing in front of the memory table, where Stella's photo sat surrounded by candles. She touched the frame gently. Thank you for raising such a good man. Thank you for Ruby. I promise I'll take care of them. And thank you for that letter because I really needed permission to believe I could have this. Bennett appeared behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. She would have loved you, probably would have tried to steal you as her best friend. Ruby ran up and grabbed both their hands. Can we dance now? They're playing the good songs. The 3 of them walked onto the dance floor together and swayed to music that was slightly too fast for slow dancing. And Maya looked at her family, the one she'd built from broken pieces and second chances, and thought, this is what happiness feels like. I almost forgot. Sometimes the worst moment of your life is actually the doorway to the best one. Maya thought being rejected was the end of her story, but it was just the beginning. Bennett thought loving again meant forgetting Stella, but it meant honoring her by choosing joy. And Ruby learned that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. It just keeps growing to fit everyone who deserves a place in your heart. If you've ever felt like you're too broken or too busy or too much for someone to love, you're not. The right person doesn't see your baggage, they help you carry it. And sometimes that person walks in right when you're crying and sits down anyway and says, tell me what happened. Hit that subscribe button if this reminded you that rejection is just redirection, that second chances are real, and the family you build is just as sacred as the one you lost. Thanks for being here with us.